All right, we're about to tackle one of the biggest, most personal questions in all of Christian theology. And it's this: once a person is truly saved, can they ever be lost?
So let's just dive right into the heart of a debate that has shaped the church and individual faith for centuries. We're talking about a question of security, of assurance, and really the very nature of God's grace itself.
I mean, really think about that for a second. Is it possible for someone who has genuinely put their faith in Christ, someone who's been born again and forgiven, to somehow, down the line, fall away and lose that salvation for good? And this is definitely not just some trivial debate. As you can see, it has profound soteriological importance. And hey, don't let that big word throw you. Soteriology is just the fancy theological term for the study of salvation. So this question, it gets right to the absolute core of what it means to be saved. Now, historically, Christianity has offered two very different answers to this question. And we're not talking about minor disagreements here. These are two fundamentally different ways of looking at the relationship between God's power and our human responsibility. Okay, so here they are, laid out side by side. On one side, you have conditional security, which you'll often hear in Arminian theology. It basically says, yes, salvation is conditional, it can be lost. But on the other side, you have unconditional perseverance, the Reformed view, which says, nope, a true believer is eternally secure. Now, for this explainer, we're going to focus on unpacking that second view, the one known as the perseverance of the saints.
So let's dig into how this idea is built. I mean, the name itself, Perseverance of the Saints, kind of gives you a hint. It's about enduring, right? But the real key is figuring out how that happens.
So here's the formal definition, but I want you to zero in on this one part. Believers are preserved in their faith by His power. See, the emphasis isn't on the believer's strength to hold on. It's all about God's power to hold on to the believer. That's a huge shift. And you can really feel the weight of that certainty here. This quote from the historic Westminster Confession is so direct. It doesn't say believers might persevere or that they should try really hard to. No, it says they shall certainly persevere. It's framed as a guaranteed outcome. Now, this confidence isn't just pulled out of thin air. It's built on specific promises from the Bible. You've got passages like John 10, where Jesus says of his sheep, "No one will snatch them out of my hand." Or Romans 8, which famously says that nothing, and I mean nothing, can separate us from God's love. The whole argument is that our security rests on God's promises, not our own performance. And this, right here, is the absolute crux of the whole idea. The foundation for a believer's security isn't found in their own wavering will or their up and down faithfulness. In this view, it rests on something way more solid, the unchanging, eternal decision or decree of God Himself. You know, all this talk of decrees can feel a little heady, a bit abstract. So let's bring it down to earth with a really simple, but I think powerful analogy that makes the difference between these two views crystal clear. Okay, picture this. You're being rescued, you're hanging over the side of a cliff, and there's a rope. Everything comes down to one simple question. Who is holding that rope? Is it you, or is it your rescuer? And this is where it all just clicks into place. In the view of conditional security, you're the one holding onto the rope. Your safety literally depends on how strong your grip is. If you get tired, if you slip, if you let go, you fall. But in the Reformed view, God isn't just holding the rope. He's holding you. You're in His unbreakable grip. Your security is guaranteed because His grip, well, it never ever fails.
Okay, but wait a minute. Whenever this idea of an unbreakable grip comes up, a really important practical question immediately follows. So let's just meet it head on.
And it's a totally fair question, right? If you're 100% sure you're secure no matter what you do, what's to stop you from just living however you want? This is probably the number one objection people have to this doctrine. The Reformed answer actually changes how we think about faith itself. First, it says that saving faith isn't something you just cook up on your own. It's a gift from God. Second, because it's a divine gift, it's alive. It's like a living root that can't help but grow and produce fruit, things like good works and a desire for holiness. And finally, that continuing growth, that perseverance, is the ultimate proof that the root was real and alive in the first place. And this is where the motivation completely flips.
The reason a secure believer tries to live a holy life isn't because they're terrified of losing their salvation. No, their actions are fueled by this overwhelming sense of gratitude for the incredible grace they've been shown. It becomes a response of love, not a transaction based on fear. So this leads to a really critical point. What about those people we all know who seem to be all in with their faith, and then they just completely walk away for good? From this theological perspective, the conclusion isn't that they lost their salvation. It's that their initial profession of faith wasn't the real deal, that genuine internal regeneration had never actually happened. The root, so to speak, was never truly there.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together. Let's do a quick summary by looking at where each of these views places the ultimate source of a Christian's security. This chart lays it all out, nice and clean. But I want you to look at that middle row, foundation. That's the whole ballgame. In one view, the foundation is the believer's ability to keep on believing. In the other, in the perseverance of the saints, the foundation is God's unchanging decision and the finished work of Christ on the cross. Honestly, if you forget everything else from this explainer, try to remember this one little phrase. When it comes to the Reformed view of saving faith, God gives it, God grows it, and God keeps it. It's His work from start to finish. And that really brings us to our final question, the one that turns all this theology back to you. When you think about your own spiritual hope, your own assurance, what is its foundation? Is it in the strength of your own grip on the rope, or in the strength of the one who holds you? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.